In this video, I'm going to show you the 7 things that you need to know to be able to sew by hand. Hey friends, welcome to Adulting with Esther, the show where we talk about the things that you don't learn in school. I'm your host, Esther, and today we're going to be talking about the 7 things that you need to know to be able to sew by hand. If you're new here, welcome. Consider subscribing down below so that you can get alerts when we post our videos on Tuesdays, and go ahead and hit that like button if you're getting value out of this video so far. If at any point during the video you want to check out the description below, you'll be able to find links to things like the products I'm using here and links to other resources to help you out. The first thing you're going to need is a pair of quality scissors. These are Fiskars. They are a great middle-of-the-road product. They're not elite for the best sewers, and they're not terrible. They give you a nice clean cut. Only use them for material or thread, otherwise you will dull the blade and they won't be as good anymore. You'll also need some thread. You'll want whatever matches the clothing that you're sewing. The other thing you're going to need is needles. They typically come in a variety pack. Make sure that when you purchase them, you get ones that are made for hand sewing, which means the eye of the needle is at the back end, whereas the ones for machines have the eye at the front end. So make sure you get hand sewing needles. They typically come in a variety pack with a bunch of different sizes. I wouldn't be too picky about the size needle you use. Work with whatever is comfortable. The bigger the needle though, the harder it is to get through fabric. It is harder to get bigger needles through tight knit fabric, and sometimes the smaller needles break in really durable fabric like jeans. Test a few out, they're not that expensive. And for when we're patching 2 pieces of material together or hemming, you're going to need some pins. If you don't have pins like this, you can always use safety pins. They won't work as well, but they'll do just fine in a pinch. For the patching we'll be doing, I have some of these wonderful iron-on patches that you iron on to a piece of clothing first and then you sew around the edge. These are great for when that space in between your legs and your jeans starts to wear out. Use this to reinforce them and you can get another year or 2 out of your favorite pair of jeans. Okay, let's get our thread. The way I learned to measure my thread, a lot of people say 20 inches, but what I've learned is a good rule of thumb is measure the length of one of your arms. Just extend it all the way and then use your really sharp scissors to give it a little snip. If you're using cheap scissors, you'll notice that the end gets really frayed, which will make it difficult when you're trying to thread your needle later. A trick for threading your needle is, it's kind of gross, give it a little spit, lick it a little bit, and that will pull those threads together. When you have those frayed edges, it makes it harder to put. It's like putting a square thing inside a small hole. I don't know, you know what I mean. That's the first trick you can do. The second trick you can do is if you have beeswax, which is the stuff that's in like Burt's Bees chapstick, you probably could use chapstick, I don't know. Might smell like strawberries. Anyways, you can use that to pull the threads together. If you lick it too much, it eventually gets kind of limp and it's hard to go through the thread, through the needle. And you find your little hole and you aim and you go and it's in. Now, if you don't have luck the first time, that's okay. It takes most people like 20 times to thread a needle. But one other really neat trick is get a piece of paper and cut a very, very, very thin slit. I'm talking like 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, very teensy tiny. The width of that tiny piece of paper needs to be small enough that it'll fit through the eye of the needle. So practice and see if that'll fit through. I can see that this will fit through the eye of my needle now. What I'm gonna do here, if you've ever made those fun bracelets out of gum wrappers, this is kind of like that. Just gonna fold it in half. I'm going to stick the folded end, the end that if I push it, it would make like a circle. And I'm gonna put that through the eye of the needle. This should be easier because it's got a little more structure to it. It's firmer than just a limp piece of thread. And so now you got your paper through. Now that your paper is through the eye of the needle, you can open up that hole. It's much bigger and it's gonna be a lot easier for me to aim with my thread. And I'm gonna take my thread and put it through the big paper hole that I made. See how fast and easy that was? I'm gonna pull it through a little bit so I don't make any mistakes and lose it. And then I pull the paper and the thread through the needle. And I pull it until the other end of it comes through. And now I have successfully threaded my needle with a piece of paper. There's also that cute little tool that has a dime on it, that one. That works well too, but if you didn't buy a sewing kit, you won't have it. So now to knot the thread on our needle. We put our 2 ends of thread together and we wrap it in an overhand loop. We take this end of thread and we go through the loop about 3 times. The more times you go through the loop with that end of thread, it's going to make a bigger knot. And the bigger knot, the less chance of it falling through your material. Now I'm going to hold the end of that thread with my right hand, and I'm going to push it down with my left. So that makes a really messy knot. And I pull it down to the end, and voila. And that's it. Let's talk stitches. Different stitches have different purposes. Some are for temporary holds. On the first day of sewing, Esther gave to me a brand new ability.